This summer I dedicated myself to rereading Harry Potter and vlogging about my experience. This is Maggie Rereads Harry Potter. Part the 4th, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. So just to jump right in, the first scene of this book is when Harry, by the magic of Leglaments, I'm not sure. One of them is seeing into other people's brains and the other one is not letting other people see into your brain. So, due to the magic of one of the Menses, I realized what I said. Harry sees Voldemort take out a Muggle man and work towards getting his strength back. And he's been taking some sort of potion made out of snake venom for the longest time, keeping him in the form of, like, remember the fetus in the train station made of light in the 8th movie? Keeping him basically in subway fetus form until he can get to Harry and regenerate fully. But there's one point where Voldemort says to Peter Pettigrew, "You will milk Nagini before we retire, Wormtail. I will need feeding in the night." That's so gross. Like, oh my god. I understand that they mean, like, you know, when you milk a snake for venom and you, like, squeeze its head in a jar or something, but oh my god. I couldn't get the image of Wormtail with a little bucket milking a snake out of my head for the longest time, and it was absolutely freaking disgusting. Also, the Weasleys are my faves. I will always have a soft spot for the Weasleys. And when they come to pick up Harry for the Quidditch World Cup, they blow up the Dursleys' fireplace. And Mr. Weasley is just so excited to see so many muggles. And he's like, "Glorious! This fireplace runs off electricity? Oh my god!" And that's one of the things that made me chuckle. The entire Quidditch World Cup chunk, I suppose, of this book was just great. Because, first of all, up Ireland, second of all, up Mayo. And it just made me smile. Because it was so fun. Just people going to a sporting event. And so this got me thinking about Irish wizard culture and if it's any different than British wizard culture. And I started thinking to myself, I wonder if Irish Quidditch is anything like Muggle GAA. Like every year in the finals, is it Mayo seems to have a really good chance this year, but nope, Dublin is gonna just sweep out under you and take the title like every other year that this has ever happened, ever. Do people, like, go see Quidditch matches and then get pissed drunk on fire whiskey after, and they can't call a cab home because they're wizards, so they, like, take a port key home because they're drunk? I don't know. Apparating, at least in, like, the milestone department, seems to be, like, the wizard equivalent of driving. So can you apparate while drunk? Like, I understand with the risk of splinching and whatnot, it's probably not suggested to apparate while drunk, but are there, like, laws against it? Like, AUI kind of things? I don't know. One of my favorite things about the Harry Potter series as a whole is that we get to see a lot of the kids' lives, not just, "Oh my god, we Wingardium Leviosa, I can do magic, yay!" kind of things, but also we get to see them being normal teenagers and get to see them experiencing a lot of emotions, and then I experience a lot of emotions as a result of them experiencing emotions, and it's a vicious cycle. But what happened in this book was two things. Ron coming to terms with his poverty, and Neville, I don't know if coming to terms is the word for it, but Neville talking about his parents and learning about Neville's parents, it just hit me right in the feels. Because, okay, Ron feels like he's the second banana in his own life. So Ron has the famous and rich best friend, and he has the incredibly intelligent, probably not hot yet, but pretty soon she's gonna be, best friend, and he just kind of feels like, well, I'm Ron Weasley. I'm the ginger. That's my shtick! And Neville's recognizing the Cruciatus Curse in class made me so sad. Because that's how his parents were tortured and driven to insanity and sent to St. Mungo's, and then Neville is just like, yep, I recognize that. That's the Cruciatus Curse. Which makes me think, did they do that in front of him? Did they mention that at some other point, that they did the Cruciatus Curse on his parents in front of him? Because wowza. I feel like of all of the books that had to sacrifice things to be in movie form, this one has definitely gotten the most cut out of it so far. A couple of little quirks that people had and a couple little fun story structure things were pretty much taken out of this entirely. So, first of all, Moody in the book has this habit of screaming constant vigilance at people randomly, like in class or in the hallways, because A, you gotta be constantly vigilant and be expecting the constant vigilance. And, let's see, spew is also a massive part of this book. I forgot how into spew Hermione was. Winky the house elf, who inspired spew, just completely cut from the movie. I suppose that you couldn't have had one without the other in movieverse, but still, both would have been nice. Calling Sirius Snuffles when they were talking about him in code. Sirius Black, you spent 13 years of your life in the wizard prison Azkaban, surrounded by Dementors, Death Eaters, and legitimate murderers. You are at this point as equivalent to a hardened criminal as if you actually had committed any crimes. The entire wizarding community is still terrified of you. The fact that you're at large scares the shit out of people. But yep, let's call you Snuffles. That didn't make it into the movie. Hermione is freaking ruthless. I know that we all like to imagine movie Hermione when we think of Hermione, like, I'm Emma Watson, I'm super smart, I'm super pretty, I just absorb the good qualities of everybody in the book and retain none of my own good qualities, which is something that I'll have to talk about later. But Hermione in the book is fucking ruthless. So first of all, she spends hours basically bribing people and harassing people into joining Spew. She leaves knitted clothing around the school in the hopes that the house elves will accidentally pick it up and be freed. And icing on the freaking cake, Hermione, first off, figures out that Rita Skeeter is an unregistered animagus, catches Rita Skeeter in her animagus form, and keeps Rita Skeeter in a jar for the better part of a year. This kind of reminded me, as what I was saying as well, any female character in this book that is not Hermione, which J.K. Rowling has basically said Hermione is a self-insert. Any female character in this book that's not Hermione really gets the short end of the stick, characterization-wise, you know? The one that pops into my mind in this book in particular is Fleur Delacour. So Fleur Delacour has been chosen by the Goblet of Fire as worthy to participate in the Triwizard Tournament. Why is she so incompetent? Like, I'm sorry, there is an entire school full of people at Beauxbatons. Why the frickin' frackety frick frack would they pick somebody so incompetent? And now, not a knock on Fleur herself. That's a knock on world building. I would love to see a Fleur Delacour who kicked ass in this tournament. And I understand... No, I don't understand, actually. I'm going at this from a J.K. Rowling perspective. Harry had to be good at this because he's Harry Potter. Cedric had to be good at this in order to be a viable competitor for Harry, if that makes sense. Like, not just in the game, but Harry wants Cedric's girlfriend. And if Cedric isn't at least a little bit good, Harry can't be experiencing that kind of jealousy because he'd be able to just swoop in and take that, if you will. Victor has to be good because Hermione's dating Victor, and Hermione doesn't get anything less than the best. So now we're stuck with Fleur Delacour, who has to be incompetent because someone has to be in last place. And I'm not sure if it would have been worse to have all 4 champions be male, or to have the balance of gender that we have, but continue to have Fleur be so incompetent. You know what I mean? She's just portrayed as an airhead because she's not Hermione, so she can't be smart. She's pretty, so she can't be able to do anything. Like, I'm sorry. This girl is portrayed as so callous and so heartless just because she's really pretty. And may I remind you, okay, so in the second task, they had to save the person who was their most precious. Harry had to save Ron, which has implications I'm not going to go into right now. No, I'm kidding. So Harry had to save Ron because Ron was Harry's first real friend. That's a bond that makes sense. Victor had to save Hermione because they've been dating for 3 months and Hermione has to be inserted into this somehow. Cedric had to save Cho because jealous Harry is jealous. But Fleur Delacour's most precious was her baby sister. Just think about that for a second. This girl has boys fawning all over her, probably has girls tripping over themselves to be her friend. And her most precious is her little sister. Fleur Delacour could have been such a good character in this book, and instead we're left with a half-baked Taffavila. The introduction of the portkey in this book was extremely convenient. Like, I don't know. I feel like it would have been more delicate to say, introduce the portkey in Prisoner of Azkaban, and then have it come up again in this book. We've gotten a lot of that, like, delicate foreshadowing in early books before, like, with the things in Borgin and Burke's, The Vanishing Cabinet, Angelina's necklace, etc., etc. But with this one, the foreshadowing is just kind of beating you over the head with a stick, like, BAM! Portkeys are important! See, speaking of more gentle foreshadowing, in this book, Dumbledore foreshadows the Room of Requirement, which becomes really, really important in the next book. So Victor Crumb is telling Hermione all about Durmstrang, what it's like, what the grounds are like, etc., etc. And so then Karkaroff gets upset and is like, don't go giving away all the secrets of our school. And he turns to Dumbledore and says, wouldn't you not like it if someone's giving away all your school's secrets? And Dumbledore says, I would never dream of assuming I know all of Hogwarts' secrets, Igor. Only this morning, for instance, I took a wrong turn on the way to the bathroom and found myself in a beautifully proportioned room I have never seen before, containing a rather magnificent collection of chamber pots. When I went back to investigate it more closely, I discovered the room had vanished, but I must keep an eye out for it. Possibly it is only accessible at 5:30 in the morning, or it may only appear at the quarter moon, or when the seeker has an exceptionally full bladder. That's the Room of Requirement. Just saying. That's the subtle foreshadowing that I enjoy. I wrote down at one point, it's funny because Ron is made a prefect, and I'm not really sure what I was referencing with that, so do with that what you will. So next I'll be diving into Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, large print edition. You can probably read this from over there. That's how big the text is. So I'm hoping that I'll find a more reasonably sized text version of this because this is the only one my library had. So with that, I leave you with a few words, nitwit, blubber, oddment, tweak, and I'll see you next time. But wait, there's more! I'm sure you've noticed the wonderful shirt that I'm wearing right now. It says The Greats on it, and I think it says, one of the greats. What does that mean, people? Well, let me just tell you. So recently, me right here, attended the world's most wonderful academy camp thingy. It's the Tim Howard Leadership Academy for young people with Tourette's. And I had the glorious privilege, I suppose, of being a coach in training, so I got to help run the thing, and it was real good, and it was a good time, and I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about my syndrome, and I also met other young people with Tourette's in the flesh and spoke to them to the face for the first time in my life, and that was a very powerful experience for me. So I want this to be able to happen again for years and years and years to come. But as the academy is free to all of the children attending it, it thrives pretty much exclusively on donations from the public. So I'm going to be putting all around the screen a link to the GoFundMe page. It'll also be in the doobly-doo if you need it. And admire my pretty gold shirt. Look at it. Look at it.